Scales are the primary tool that you use when you're learning to improvise. But scales by themselves can leave solos feeling a little disjointed or a little lost. Target notes fixes that completely. Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name's Chris. The concept of target notes is an easy one to grasp. You're simply targeting and playing notes that are directly related to the chord progression that you're playing over. But as a practice, it takes a little study and it takes a little brain work to get your head around it and to understand how it works. The problem that target notes solves can be summed up like this. You may have had this experience where you're playing over a backing track or jamming with a friend, and you play a solo and you play a note that sounds great. It's just, oh, wow. And then 2 bars later, you go to play it again and it doesn't work. And you're like, what? It's in the scale. It just worked. What happened was the harmonic relationship has changed and you didn't clock it. You didn't pay attention to it. It's okay because you haven't studied it. You don't know it yet, so it's fine. But you're lost, right? So target notes solves this simply by making sure that those things are connected. Here's a great example. The progression we're going to play today is A as the tonal center. It's not in the key of A, but it uses A as sort of the home base. The A minor pentatonic scale is going to work over this whole thing. I guarantee it. It's definitely going to work. But the A minor pentatonic scale has a C natural in it. And the A major chord has a C sharp in it. So unless I'm paying attention and I land on this note, when the band or the backing track is playing an A chord, that's going to be the result right there. I don't know about you, but I'm done hearing that, right? So without understanding that, I could step on a landmine. So the chord progression we're going to use today is pretty simple. It's around the tonal center of A, and the chords are as follows. A, C, G, D. So target notes are basically just me targeting the notes in those chords, right? Should be fine. But there's a problem, and that is that all these chords, while they're related to the chord progression, they're not related to each other. They're not put on the neck in a way that makes them easy to switch to. This one has 4 notes. This one has 5 notes. This one has all 6. This one over here only has 4, but they're on a different set of strings. Not to mention when I get to the C, I can't really see what's coming up next. I can't see through my hands. The first thing to do here is to convert this whole progression to triads. So if you don't know all the triads yet, you really should. Converting stuff to triads makes chord progressions easier to see, and you're going to need to see them easily to be able to target the notes inside them. So the first way to do this is just convert the entire chord progression into bar chords. Here's your C, here's your G, here's your D. And we're going to use this set of strings. We're going to constrain ourselves to just notes on the D, G, and the B string in this chord progression. So that would look like this. Turns out these are the triads. And here's what they look like without all the bar chord around them. There's your A, there's your C, there's the G, and there's the D. So these are the target notes. These are the chords that outline the progression, and so playing these notes just by themselves should be fine for the entire chord progression. I'm just going to play the triads here and it should be okay. And hear the chord progression. Because these chords are the progression. But like I mentioned at the top, if you only use scales for a solo, it can sound a little bit lost, a little bit sort of just like misplaced, you know, not really grounded. Target notes have the exact opposite problem because they're so grounded that if you just play this over and over again, it it becomes too literal, like it's too much. But you need to do this as an exercise in learning target notes to get familiar with it and to be able to start seeing the notes that you're going to target. Once you get that, you want to start to look at the voice leading. And voice leading is basically how one note sort of turns into another note in a melody or in a chord progression. This note leads to this note, sort of putting it all together in this idea of voice leading. So if you look at the voice leading, and basically I'll show you how the first two chords voice lead. I'll show you how to uncover that. You should really do the rest on your own. Here's our A chord. Here's our C chord. Now if you look at this, each note, each string has a set of notes that's changing or not changing. So on the A chord, this note here stays the same. It's an E note for the C chord. So it doesn't change. Here, listen to this. And the voice leading for the next string, the G string, is a half step. And the voice leading for the D string is a whole step. So you've got this. So now you can see these notes and you can sort of like while you're phrasing or while you're playing something, you can target them when the chords change. So another example is to just look at the voice leading on a single string. So if you look at our chords, we're going to take this D and we're going to move it down here. Just take the G string, for example. Let's just listen to the notes on the G string. You can even hear the progression right there. So that'll work over the progression. I can see the chords going by. But now the trick is you get your little guitar player toolbox out, and you open it up, and there's bending, and there's vibrato, and there's whammy bar. Whatever it is you bring along with you, now you can basically use those tools with these target notes and really start to express something. So I know this is my target for the first note, but instead of playing that note, I'm going to go down a whole step. I'm going to bend into it. So here I am on the 4th fret. I'm bending up to the 6th fret. So I'm playing this note, but I'm looking at this note. The next note in the chord progression is here. The next note in my melody is just a half step down. So I'm bent up a whole step. Now I'm going to relax and then bend up a half step. Because that's the note I'm looking at. Even though I'm playing the 4th fret, I'm seeing the 6th fret, I'm seeing the 5th fret. The next note is right here on the 4th fret, and then it ends here on the 2nd fret. So now with my guitar toolkit, I'll take that same idea and I'll start using bends. So the last thing I want to show you is basically how to use target notes as just landing notes. We're doing that with the bend example, but now we're just going to use a motif, and that motif is simply going to be a bend and release. And that bend and release is still on the G string. We're not going anywhere. It's right in the middle of our pentatonic scale. We're just going to end that phrase on a different note as the chord progression goes by, and here's what that looks like. The next note is down here, but I'm just going to move it here because it's closer. Now I'm using a motif and I'm targeting those notes. So basically there are 3 different ways to look at target notes. Just playing through the triads, which is sort of like building your skill to look and use your brain and eyes to sort of find the next note that you want. The bending single line example to really leverage the voice leading of the chord progression. And that final one is just using a motif and using the target notes as new landing spots as the chords change. So there's how you start thinking about target notes. It really is a study. You know, as much time as you've put into this, until you've put that amount of time, the amount of time you've practiced the pentatonic scale, until you've put that amount of time into target notes, you won't be able to leverage it as well as you leverage this. So it's a study. Just take that away and make sure that you understand that it's not something that just happens overnight. You've got to like learn how to do it, and hopefully this video has helped. Again, I've got the backing track and all the tabs over my Patreon page. That's linked in the description below. If you need some more time, just head over there and it's all sitting there waiting for you. Before I sign off, I also just want to say, I just want to relate a deep thank you to everyone who's come by the channel, and specifically to Marty Schwartz. Bro, dude, Marty just featured me on his channel last week in an interview, and there's a link for that here. Since then, the channel's gone from 20 subscribers to 500. So I just want to say thanks to everybody for swinging by. I'm glad this is helpful, and hopefully I've got more for you. So I'll see you next time.